Lesson 16 gives us the last of the principal parts, the sixth one, and it's the aorist passive. And on this same stem, the future passive is formed. So we'll look first at the vocabulary, and then we'll get that sixth principal part nailed down, and then we'll finish up page 23 as well. Vocabulary goes like this. Paragraph 196, page 92 of Machen. Analamvano I take up. Evlithine I was thrown. Evlithine I was thrown. I was cast. That's the aorist passive of valo. I was thrown. Eunithine I became. The aorist passive of yiname. Egnosthine I was known, from Unesco. Edidocthine I was taught. Ekirikthine I was preached. Elimpthine I was taken, from Lamvano. Eporevthine I went, passive form in form of porevome. Enekthine I was raised, from Iero. Ikusthine I was heard, from Akuo. Enekthine I was born, I was brought. Ikthine I was led, from Ago. And Ophthine I was seen, from Orao, not Blepo, Orao. Now, as I indicated, paragraph 197, the aorist passive indicative is the sixth of the principal parts, and the future passive is formed on this stem. The stem is made by taking the present stem, augmenting it, putting in a theta eta, and we'll talk all about all that as we look at it on the flip chart. You'll notice the forms that we have here. Here we have elethine, and elethine means I was loosed. I was loosed. Now, remember, we have an augment, a stem, and then the sign of the aorist passive. This might be a good time to get this on page 24 of your workbook. Just open your workbook to page 24 and fill in, I think it's 25 there. The next one, elethine, and you see the parts, the augment, the present stem, the sign of the aorist passive, and then the secondary active endings. Now, you say, well, how do you have active endings on a passive? Well, you only have two kinds of secondary endings. You have the active endings and you have the middle endings. One of them, since you have three parts, you have, in the aorist, you have active, middle, and passive, three separate forms. One of those is going to have to do double duty. So it's the active that does double duty. So we have the active forms not only in the aorist active, but now also in the aorist passive. So that's why the knee is there. And then it would be and so forth round down. So the elethine, the aorist passive, I was loosed. Secondary endings, active forms. Then the future passive, I shall be loosed. I shall be loosed. Lethisome. Now, notice again the characteristics here. Li, the, so this would be, put a line here, li, the, so, man. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts to the future passive. And you notice that it's built on this stem. No augment, of course, in the future, but there's the stem. And what we say is the present stem, the sign of the aorist passive, the sign of the future, variable vowel, and then the primary middle endings. Now again, we only have two kinds of endings for the primary. Present is a primary tense, and we have the active and we have the middle or passive. One of those, these are already used. This is on the active forms, this is on the middle forms. One of them is going to have to do double duty, and in the future, it is the middle forms that do double duty. They are on the middle as well as on the passive. But you know this is passive by the theta eta sigma. So present stem, sign of the aorist passive, sign of the future, variable vowel, and then the primary middle endings, the future. Now we ought to get those filled into page 23 of the workbook. And we'll finish up that page by filling in, first of all, the future passive right here. And we see those forms on page 93 of Machen. Fill those in right here. That's the one blank spot you had. And then for the aorist of Leo, aorist passive, you can fill that in here, first aorist. And that is on page 93 as well. Now, Machen doesn't give you passive of LiPo, so to finish up your chart, I put the forms on the board. So alethine is the form, and then the same endings that you have for the first aorist, in, is, e, emen, iti, isan. So put that in that section, and that should complete page 23. Now, just to bring all of this together, let me show you something on the board. And this is something you just need to see. You need to see me build it. So that's why I don't have it pre-done. We've done so far 6 principal parts. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Machen's given us all of these. And this is in the indicative. We had Leo. And once I know that the present tense Leo, and once I know it's a regular verb, then I can go on with Liso, with Elisa, Lelika, Lelime, and Alethine. Now, these are the 6 principal parts. Because I know Leo is regular, I can do that. Now, once I know those, then I can make any form there is. Once I know Leo is regular, give me that form, and if I know all of my forms the way I should, then I can make the whole thing. I can go indicative, subjunctive, participles, infinitives, all of that I can do simply by knowing this word, if it's regular. Now, from this form, from the present form, I have 2 actual tenses coming. I have Leo, which is the present, and I have also the imperfect, Leon. Elion. This is called the perfect system. The imperfect is a part of the present system. It's called the present system. The imperfect is part of the present system. So these 2 forms come out of this form. And the imperfect is always formed regularly off the present stem. Now, back here in number 6, remember we had 2 from here. In fact, if I take this off, it would look better for us. From this stem, the 6th principal part, come 2 forms. We saw the alethine, and we saw lethysema. In other words, the aorist passive and the future passive. Now, if you keep that in mind, when someone says, what's the future passive of a particular form, you first of all get the 6th principal part. Get that first, and then you have to take off the augment of the aorist, and then take this stem, put the sigma on, and then the ome, and you have the future passive of that particular word. So, to me, this is putting it all together. Now, if I have an irregular verb, if I get a verb, say, with Unosco, or let's say Yiname, if I go Yiname, then I have to say, well, is that regular? I look it up and find, no, it isn't regular. Then I go through and put the principal parts of the irregular verb all across here, and that tells me what is the present, what's the future, what's the aorist, etc. In other words, learning the principal parts is very important to learning everything else. So we'll come down pretty hard on those principal parts. What I'd like for you to do, on page 28 of your workbook, fill in those things that we talked about. Remember the principal parts we said? Fill them in. If you want, you can restrict it only to the ones we've had. That is, if he's giving you forms in a vocabulary, as a vocabulary word, just put those in. You don't need to learn extra vocabularies. But I do want you to have that page filled in, because remember there's a final exam after chapter 17. And on that final exam, there will be some verbs for you to give the principal parts. So they'll come off that page 28. Now, in the next time, I will have that page filled out for you, and you can check what you've done along with that. Now, there are several paragraphs here we need to look at and to get an explanation of before we can leave this chapter. Paragraph 204 is one. When you put the theta on, the tense suffix, there are certain changes that happen. And it happens very much like paragraph 156. If you want to go back to that page in your workbook, page 27, there will be some similarity to that. What he says there in paragraph 204 is that if you have a P or a B, it's going to change to phi, as he wrote theta. It's going to change to phi before theta. So what he's saying is when you put the theta on, if the verb ends in either P or B, P or beta, it will change to phi before that theta. Now he gives you an illustration. Look at the illustration. He says pembo. Pembo will change to epemphthene. The P has become a phi. See that? Ago becomes ekthene, and so forth. Now, that's the first line. The P, and P and B are changed to phi. The sigma, sigma, and the kappa and gamma will change to chi before the theta. And then the zeta, tau, or delta will drop out, or also, they will drop out, or even the theta, I guess, put that in there. It will drop out before the theta. The P, I'm sorry, let me belay that. The zeta, tau, delta, and theta will change to sigma before the theta. Now, these are all in the same line as you saw in paragraph 156. We were operating with the P, B, and phi. Remember, they changed to psi before sigma. Well, if you just keep that same line, same order, P, B will change to phi. The sigma, kappa, gamma will change to chi. The zeta, tau, delta, theta will change to sigma before the theta. So put those two together, paragraph 156 and paragraph 204. And I think you can get it together. And look at his illustrations. The enago changes to ekthene, and pitho changes to pisthene, the theta changing to sigma. Paragraph 206, he talks about the second aorist passive. And what he's saying here is that there's a passive, an aorist passive, that doesn't have a theta. For instance, grapho, egraphene. There's no theta there. Egraphene, and then the een, is, emanite, eson. So just keep that in mind, that there won't be a theta in the aorist passive of grapho. Now that is in the exercises. In fact, look at number 2 in the exercises, paragraph 209. Egraphene. These things were written in the books. See? They were written. That's an aorist passive. Doesn't look like it, but it is. So remember that, salt it away for your exercise time. Then in 207, he says the aorist and future of deponent verbs. So some deponent verbs have a passive and not a middle form. For instance, apokrinome, I answer. Apokrythene, I answered. It has a passive. It doesn't have a middle. Some have both. Yinome has ayinomene, the middle, and also ayinethene, the passive. So we'll have both of those forms. So check that out in the back of the book. You can see them, or look in your page 28. Now, one more thing. There will be a quiz. Paragraph 203 has another one of those things that we need to get together on. So I will give you the present indicative, active, middle, passive, etc. And I expect you to be able to fill in the form and give the translation. That's a good summary of what we've been doing with the indicative mood. So get that ready, do your homework, and we'll get ready for the final chapter in this semester, chapter 17, and then we'll be ready for the final exam.